right. ABC. We covered the Atlanta Hawks. We've covered the Boston Celtics. We covered the Brooklyn Nets. ABC, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. But the road to a championship is not as easy as it would seem for this team, as it is the first city with the letter C in its name, Charlotte, repping DaBaby all day. I remember back in the day when they were the Bobcats. It's not back in the day. It was like a few years ago. But when they were the Bobcats, it was a little bit more exciting. Not really. I think more people are more excited now than they were about the Bobcats. But that has to do with the youthful core that they're building down in Charlotte. And Michael Jordan may actually have a team that would be in the playoffs consistently if he keeps that core together, which I think he's trying to do. Their head coach, James Borrego, the first Latino head coach in NBA history, is going to make a huge impact, I think. We're just going to get into it in the coaching. Let's go. I gotta do the DaBaby ad-libs. 1, 2, 3. Let's go! All I know about James is that he's bounced around the league for a lot of years. He's been a name that's been sort of speculated about with head coaching in the past. He had his first sort of tenure this past year with the Charlotte Hornets, and it was a success, I'd say. He led them to an almost playoff berth. They made the play-in game and lost subsequently. And I think that he had a really great showing in terms of his first year. Now, his offense, from what I've watched, is this sort of do whatever you feel type thing, because it's hard to manage the personalities on this team. And that's not a fault on him. That's a fault on the developing sort of nature that is this team, and the way that they've sort of built their team up with drafting and trades and acquisitions and free agency signings. They have a bright future, but in terms of having all of the pieces together, they just don't. Mitch Kupchak is a good GM, but a lot of the Michael Jordan pre-him era was a little bit weird. You're just sort of going through whoever you can at the end of the day. You're not acquiring what's best for your team. You're not really thinking the whole big picture. But now I think that the team has a much more concrete foundation to build better in the future. LaMelo Ball is going to be a hard-to-coach player in the future. Not to say that he lacks talent. I want to emphasize that fact, that just because you're a hard player to coach does not mean that you're a bad talent. You could be a once-in-a-lifetime talent and still be very bad to coach. And that hasn't really been the case in the past. I think LaMelo is obviously coachable, but it's going to be the task of James to make sure that he stays in line in terms of not chucking up shots, in terms of not completely landing the offense on him, because I think that there's a lot of stagnation when it comes to the offense of this team, and obviously defense has to be a little bit better. They have Terry Rozier and Bismack Biyombo, who are effective defenders, but are you going to have the whole team buy into that system? That's what you really have to do. They're lacking in both areas, where they're kind of lost on offense and they're trying to find this defense. They're trying to find this identity, but it's really hard to come by. I think that there are good players in theory that would fit a little bit better in these roles, but veteran leadership is something that they're going to really need in the future. We got word that this offseason that the Charlotte Hornets were meeting up to do a camp before preseason, which is really cool to see. And it was Terry Rozier that was organizing it. And I'm sure that James had a role in it some way or another. But what this team has to focus on in the future is maintaining that chemistry, because it's very easy to be a losing team and then all of a sudden everything's going horribly. The team blows up. Michael Jordan doesn't know what to do. He calls Mitch. He says, trade this, trade that. I mean, like, look, you have PJ Washington. He's a kind of unique type player where he can play above the rim, shoot threes, get hot. And you're going to have to develop these talents in order to go into the future. And it's a matter of development on all fronts. Like, it's like the Charlotte Hornets are an expensive car, but they're just missing. It's like the Charlotte Hornets are like a Ferrari, and they have expensive bits all around it. They look all shiny. It's really cool. But then you realize the engine is a Subaru's engine, and it's not going very far and very fast. Maybe that's a bad example because Subarus are traditionally reliable, but you get what I mean. It's flashy, but not that good. I think veteran leadership is probably the route that they go in the future. If I had to give advice to Mitch, if you're seeing this, go for a little bit more veteran leadership. Terry, you locked him up. That's great. Gordon Hayward, whatever. I feel strongly about how Gordon Hayward isn't that good, and he's never been that good. But, you know, you can't really attract free agents to Charlotte, so you're going to lock him up for $120 million. you're going to try your best to trade for the correct assets. And it's weird because you would kind of want to bank on talent like Ben Simmons is available at a buy low opportunity. But then again, you can't really give the 76ers win now. I feel like I'm going to bring up Ben Simmons just randomly for teams that are trying to get good, because that's a player that will immediately make an impact on your team, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the solution. I don't think Ben Simmons is capable of leading a team to a championship completely, right now at least, but he's definitely capable of developing a team into that. That being said, this brings me to our players to watch section. Go transition.
Let's go.
Look, my first player to watch is definitely Terry Rozier. I like the news that came out before the regular season that I mentioned earlier about him organizing a camp for the team to get together and figure out their footing together and just get better, because they definitely have a weird athleticism on the team. Kind of like they have a few freaks of nature on the team. And I don't think Terry's one of those. I think he's much more of a traditional point guard that can score, whereas a lot of players on the team, even LaMelo, Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington, are more evolved current NBA talents where it's just like, what is going on here? You're playing what kind of game? What are you supposed to be doing right? What do you do good? And I think obviously LaMelo is a little bit more poised than those two other names that I mentioned. But hey, LaMelo's got to get better too. And I think that Terry is the player to bring this team into the future. And I think that's why they locked him up for that $94 million contract during the summer. So they're kind of looking good in that regard, that they have some leadership on the team. And I mentioned earlier that they need more leadership on the team. So hopefully somehow something works out where they get a trade midseason. They got to get a better center too. I mean, seriously, they're trying their best. I mean, they got Jalen McDaniels, who's a big, and Bismack Biyombo and Vernon, whatever the hell his name is. They're definitely trying their best to have good centers, but like, I don't know. They need somebody who knows what they're doing. And I know they got Mason Plumlee. I mean, getting a Plumlee on your team is like kind of like a net equal move. It's neither going to make your team better or worse. It's just going to be a very in the middle type thing. Nobody really cares about having a Plumlee on your team. And that's no offense to the Plumlee brothers. I don't even think the other one's in the league anymore. What is Miles Plumlee? Shouts out to Miles Plumlee. The second player that I would have you watch is Miles Bridges. And that's not in terms of like, oh, this is a fantasy buy low. There's no way that that's a fantasy buy low. They have a few players that are on the precipice of being so good. And with the loss of Malik Monk, they're going to have players step up. That means a player like Miles Bridges, who can play a good amount. He plays like a traditional three, I'd say. A player like him is going to have to step up next year. They're going to have a bunch of step ups because it doesn't seem like their roster's as full as last year. And I hope that they can sort of just figure out some momentum as a team to propel them a little bit forward. But it's just, it's kind of stagnant at this point. I mean, you're losing talent mostly. But then again, you're retaining Scary Terry. So that's an important thing. Shouts out to him, a former Celtic. I don't care about the Celtics. I don't know why I'm saying that. I guess the last player to watch, and unfortunately I have to bring him up, is Kelly Oubre Jr. I kind of pondered over it because you kind of have the McDaniels and the, Hayward and, but let's go. So Kelly Oubre is a player who is not that good. But with a team like this, he'll look good, both being handsome and actually looking good on the basketball court. He's a player who works really hard. I won't deny him of that. I remember all the Warriors speculation being like, we love Kelly. Kelly's the best. He's so cool. We want him on our team. And then they just kind of like let him go. So I don't think he's a project anymore. I think he has to prove himself. He has a lot of talent, but can he be consistent? Can he be good at basketball on an every night type thing? Or is he going to go the little Tsunami Poppy route and just be a commercial star because he has the looks for it? I don't think that that's the case. I think Kelly Oubre is pretty focused on being a good basketball player. But that whole Tsunami Poppy thing got me messed up because I just saw it a ton during the playoffs. But this team has been pretty good in terms of injuries. I know LaMelo had that injury coming in, but once he started playing great. Do I think Anthony Edwards is better than him? Yes, I do. But more about the Minnesota Timberwolves later. Yeah, I named 3 players, and I wanted to make this video shorter because I can only get so many of you to watch. But I appreciate you for watching, and that's a break character right there because, I'm not supposed to acknowledge you. But we have one more segment left, and that's the predict.
Let's go.
Let's go. The prediction segment. Look, they have a great coach. I won't deny them of that. They have a clearly mentored, worked under Greg Popovich, worked under Monty Williams. They have a great coach. And I hope Michael Jordan comes down from his ivory towers and treats these players to a Michael Jordan mentorship moment, because these players probably deserve it. They're really good and they're really talented, but it's a lot of raw talent. It's not a lot of consistent talent. I hope that the Charlotte Hornets do good, and I predict a crisp 34 wins.
Let's go.